In this video, I'm going to cover all of the reading you need to know before you take the SAT. Yes, vocab, grammar, passage questions, student notes, transitions. I'm going to cover all of that in this video. And the best part is I'm designing this video to still be useful even if your SAT is literally tomorrow and you haven't studied at all yet. The tips will still help. Because the reading and writing section of the SAT is by far the harder of the two sections. Students have no idea how to approach these problems, and they consistently get the same problem types wrong again and again. But once you start approaching these problems in the right way, these problems actually become low-key pretty simple. First, words and context. These are vocab questions. To approach a vocab question, first thing you have to do is read the question. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Then read the passage. As you read this passage, pretend like you're explaining the passage to a friend, and after every single sentence you have to summarize it in your own words. As the biographer sifted through the playwright's correspondence spanning 4 decades, she observed the gradual evolution of his voice. So this biographer, looked through a bunch of the different letters from this playwright, and she observed that he changed over time. The letters radiate youthful bravura, whereas the later ones exude a blank confidence, a calm certainty born of hard-won experience. The early letters that she saw showed him as this very exciting youthful guy, whereas the later ones showed him more stoic and confident. Third, make a prediction as for what you expect the answer to be. Your prediction does not have to be right or even close. It's just to help you better understand what the passage is saying. I would guess it's something like measured a deep confidence. Then, step 4 is find whatever choice best matches your prediction. If you ever see a vocab word you don't know, try to use the roots and the prefixes and anything else you can decipher about the word to determine what it most likely means. Unilateral, that has uni in it, which means one, so that's probably not going to be it. Effervescent, nobody really knows what this means, but it seems just kind of weird, so it might be it, but probably not. Desultory, this kind of means to go aimlessly, to not have a direction, so that's probably not it either. And finally, measured. Measured means to have a lot of something, to be full in something. So it definitely matches our prediction, so D is probably going to be right. You can also see vocab questions like this. Let's do the same process. As used in the passage, what does the word husband most nearly mean? The following text is from some story. By the time we reached the final camp, the wind had scoured every loose particle from the ridge and our provisions were all but exhausted. So by the time he reached the place that he's trying to get to, the wind had basically blown everything away and he used almost all the resources. We husbanded what little kerosene remained, filling the lamps only halfway and trusting moonlight to do the rest. If they had very little kerosene remaining, they would want to make sure that they're using it very, very carefully. So I guess you could say we conserved it. Then looking at the choices for number 4, misused, not it. Celebrated, that means to be happy and excited. Estimated could be it, but it doesn't talk about them estimating the amount. It talks about them using it. And then conserved, okay, that's exactly the prediction. Grammar, this is going to be a big one, but it's going to be worth it. An independent clause is something that can exist entirely on its own. Jean went on a long and mysterious adventure. A dependent clause cannot. After the TikTok Riz party, we need something to finish this off. In order for something to be an independent clause, it must have 3 things. First, it has to contain a subject. A subject is the thing that does the action. For example, John would be in the sentence above. Then it has to have a main verb. Main verbs are verbs that do not have to at the beginning, that at the beginning, or ing at the end. So these would all not be main verbs. And third, it cannot begin with a wasabi word. These are the words listed here. If it begins with one of these, it's automatically a dependent clause. Now, you need to know how to separate these two. If you have 2 independent clauses, you can separate them with a period, a semicolon, or a comma followed by for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. You can see examples of it here. If you have an independent clause and a dependent clause though, the only things you can really use to separate them are a comma or just straight up nothing. So for this one, you see literally no separation between the two, just go straight into the next one. You can also have colons, dashes, or parentheses, and these can be used for kind of both. So either independent, or independent-dependent. Commenters have previously thought that Skibidi Riz trend would be dead by summer, claiming that it would be irrelevant by that blank. Its non-stop remixes suggest otherwise. If you use the method from above, you can see that both of these two are independent clauses, so we have to find a choice that works for that. B is literally the only one of the ones they give us that can work for an independent. Let's talk about the different punctuation you need to know. Periods are only used for ending sentences, like in these examples here. Commas have lots of uses though. You can use them for a list, like for this sentence. Or you can use it for a comma plus fanboy, like I explained above for the independent. Or you can use it for an introductory phrase. So after dinner, we watched one of John's SAT videos. You can use it for non-essential information. Non-essential information is information you can eliminate from the sentence and have it still make perfect sense. My brother, who lives in Japan, is visiting soon. We can eliminate this and the sentence still makes sense. My brother is visiting soon. Or an adjective describing the main noun. It was a long, exhausting day. Semicolons can be used to separate independent clauses and other independent clauses like we talked about before, or it can be used for a complex list. A complex list is like a normal list, except it has commas within the stuff in the list. So if we travel to Paris, France, Zurich, Switzerland, and Munich, Germany, each of those is its own separate thing, but there's a comma on each one. Colons are for separating things when the thing after it perfectly matches the thing before it. She brought 3 things, a pen, a notebook, and a dream. The things she brought were the pen, the notebook, and the dream. Dashes are just to add an interjection in the sentence that's more abrupt. My dog, the one that hates baths, jumped into the lake. Parentheses are doing the same thing as dashes, but just less abrupt. 6'7", the big new meme, has a story of the very fabric of society. Both of these are non-essential information, so you can eliminate it and have it still make sense. Zach is perhaps best known for posting chaotic skibbity-riz clips on TikTok, but he also dedicated himself to cringeology, the study of blank. More than 350 meme edits of the wild trends, submitting his analysis of brain rot culture to his media studies club. Since the thing after it has no subject, it must be a dependent clause. And with these choices, the only one that really matches for a dependent clause would be C or D. But for this one, the stuff after producing would be non-essential information, like we talked about over here. So therefore, you have to go for D as the right answer. Feel free to re-watch this portion of the video if none of this made sense, because I know this is a bunch of information. Then verbs. In order to make verbs work, you have to match the subject with the verb. The subject is what does the action, the verb is the action. For singular verbs, you have to use S at the end. This is the opposite of nouns. She walks to the store. But for plural verbs, you just have the verb by itself with no S. They walk to the store. In order to do these questions, you have to find the exact subject and then match the verb that goes with it. The random urge to pull up Subway Surfers on split screen that blank. Okay, so the subject of this is urge. It's not anything else, and you can tell because that's the only thing that makes sense if you match it with the verbs given here. Since it's singular, we have to use an S at the end, so therefore A must be right. On today's social media feeds, the fan edits POV clips and Delulu dating advice a person scrolls through blank each. Okay, these are multiple different things, so we must find a plural verb for this one. The only one that doesn't end in S, because you just look at the first word, is underlie. You can also find situations with main verbs though. Basically, every sentence must have one main verb, and then other verbs can be non-main verbs, like the ones listed here. To survive when homework is overwhelming, students with severe doom-scrolling brain rot blank a kind of autopilot state known as infinite scroll. So if we look at here, there's no other main verb I can see listed at the start of the sentence, so we have to find a main verb as the answer. Enter would work. During long Zoom lectures, many students can feel their focus rapidly blank. So it says they feel their focus, so feel would be a main verb, so we can't really have another main verb in here, so we have to go for a non-main verb like collapsing. And then finally, verb tense. Verbs can be past, present, or future tense, meaning when they occur. They can happen before the sentence happened, during the sentence, or after the sentence. All you have to do to solve these questions is find exactly what the context indicates about where this word will be. NPC live streams are kind of TikTok brain rot in which creators repeat short phrases and robotic gestures whenever viewers send virtual gifts. You blank more about how this trend affects people's attention spans in a later chapter. So it says in a later chapter, so it's going to be in the future. Future has to have will, so we can use will learn. Messages in a chaotic group chat appear increasingly fast until they blank a level of pure nonsense. So it's not saying that this happens in the past or the future, it just says that this can happen. So we should use a present tense verb, such as in this one, reach. If you see a word like had here, that means that it happened past. By the time lecture started, my attention span had already been cooked. So the attention span had been cooked even before the lecture, which is already in past tense, had started. Modifiers. When you see a modifier in the SAT, you're going to see a comma, then the thing before the comma has to perfectly match the way the thing after the comma is written. Even though they are free, fast, and available 24/7, blank sometimes generate incorrect information and can tempt students to avoid doing their own thinking. So we have to identify what is free, fast, and available 24/7 and have that be the first thing after the comma. That is not what's free, fast, and available 24/7. Two main concerns. Okay, the concerns are not free, fast, and available 24/7. Teachers, 2 central concerns. Okay, teachers are not free, fast, and available 24/7, unfortunately. AI chatbots. Okay, those are free, fast, and available 24/7. So that's why D must be the right answer. Pronouns. You have to make sure that whenever you see a noun in the sentence, if you use a pronoun like he, she, or it matches the exact way the pronoun is written. So first, if it's singular, it has to be singular. If it's plural, it has to be plural. When a certain form of online brain rot, hour-long TikTok live streams and endless reaction stitches are two well-known examples, takes over a platform, blink of a small number of creators. Okay, so it's talking about a form of brain rot. I know there's a bunch of words here, but form is what they're specifically referring to. So we have to find a singular pronoun. The only one that's singular out of these examples is it. You should also pay attention to whether it's subjective, objective, or possessive. If it's subjective, it does the action like I, he, she. Objective means it takes the action like me, him, her. And possessive means it owns something like my, mine. When they were first added to school slideshow presentations, looping Subway Surfer clips under notes were met with a lot of backlash. One frustrated teacher wrote an email to the principal saying she considered blank distracting. Okay, so looking at this, the Subway Surfers clips are what's taking the action. She considered them distracting. I already said it. It has to be them. Finally, possession. What this refers to is when something or someone owns something. If it's apostrophe S, it must be singular. If it's S apostrophe, it must be plural. During study hall, 3 of my blank phones lit up at the same time with the same brain rot meme notification. So if there's 3 phones, it has to be plural, so we go C for the answer. During math class, my blank TikTok account started blasting the same Sigma edit at full volume. I assume you only have one girlfriend, so you must use apostrophe followed by S. C. I have a grammar video that goes into more detail as well. Transitions. You see situations where you have 2 sentences on the SAT and you have to find the perfect word or phrase to go between them. Here's how you should approach these questions. First, read the question. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? Second, read the passage in the same way that I showed you how to read it for the vocab questions. At the start of the week, Zara told everyone she was entering Sigma grindset mode for her exams and even deleted TikTok from her phone. Okay, so Zara was like locking in for real. Blink, as soon as her friend dropped a new Skibidi toilet edit in the group chat, Zara's screen time blasted off again and her chemistry notes sat untouched for another hour. She gave up really fast. So I would guess it's gonna have to be some transition like unfortunately or however, because we're showing contradiction here. Then finally just find the one that matches. However is one of the choices, let's just go with that. Which choice most logically completes the text? Okay. For years, the school's custodial staff kept the halls spotless, fixing broken desks and cleaning up after every spilled drink, but most students barely noticed. They were too busy scrolling memes and Skibidi edits between classes. So these custodians were just locking in, but these students did not care. Blink, in 2024, the Student Council finally organized a Custodian Appreciation Day, complete with posters, gift cards, and a shout out at the pep rally. So I would get something like then, or ultimately, or finally. Now let's look at the choices. Lastly. Lastly kind of sounds right, but it doesn't really work because lastly indicates that there was a list of different things. There wasn't really a list here. Then, okay, that perfectly matches the prediction. Similarly, for example, no, those don't really match at all. I have this list here of all the most common transition word types you're going to see on the SAT. The ones you really need to pay the most attention to though are these first 3. Contradictions, like when something contradicts the previous sentence, cause and effect, when the first sentence causes the second sentence, and specification, when the second sentence provides an example or is more specific on what the first sentence talked about. But all these you should try memorizing if you have the chance. Student notes. These are questions where you get given a list of notes and you have to make some conclusion based off of them. Solving these questions is very specific in how you do it. You just read the question. The student wants to include a quotation that most clearly emphasizes the disruptive impact of artificial night lighting, such as LED streetlights, on insects' internal clocks. Which choice most effectively fulfills this purpose? So we're trying to emphasize the disruptive impact of this night lighting. Then, don't read the passage, actually just go straight to the choices. And just try to find the choice that best matches the question it asks. So in the field experiment, this person found that blue-rich LED light can alter nighttime behavior patterns of moths. Okay, yeah, that would disrupt the internal clocks, I guess. So that kind of could work. Let's just look at the other ones. Sharma's 2023 meta-analysis warns that artificial night lighting is proving catastrophic for insect circadian rhythms, leading to population declines. Okay, this is even better than A because we're trying to find the disruptive impact. So that means there must be something bad about the impact. B would be better than A. C. In a 2022 lab study, Lee reported that cool white LEDs cause measurable shifts in insect circadian rhythm. Okay, so that's not really that good again because B is the only one that actually goes negative. C is still kind of just ambiguous. Sharma notes that even modest reduction in sky glow can allow nocturnal insects to rebound within a decade. Okay, that's very vague and unclear, so D cannot be it. You should only look at the passage and notes itself if you need to decipher an answer choice. I did not need to for this question, so I can just go for B as the right answer. But if you do want to see one where you have to do that, check out my student notes video also on this YouTube channel. On to the big one, passage questions. This is going to be very similar to transition questions, just with a little bit more work involved. First, read the question. Which choice most logically completes the text? Then read the passage. Several small towns in the region recently began offering tax credits to households that install rooftop solar panels. Governments were giving money to people who put solar panels on their houses. In advertisements for the credits, town officials emphasized the role of solar power in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, so by doing this, you can help the environment. 6 months later, applications for the credits exceeded expectations by 120%, even though the upfront cost of installation remained unchanged and local electricity rates had actually fallen. So everybody was really liking these solar panels, even though they still cost a lot of money, and even though they actually would have been better off and spending less money if they just used electricity. According to an energy economist, the surge in applications shows that homeowners are responding to more than just immediate financial savings. So homeowners care about more than just costs when they're considering when to put solar panels on their houses. But these observations best support the inference that, okay, let's make a prediction here. I don't know exactly what the choices are going to say, but I can still make a prediction to put myself on the right track. So I would guess that it best supports the inference that these homeowners really care about the environment, because that's the only other logical reason why they would want to put these on their houses. Then go through the choices and try to perfectly find the word or words from each choice that makes the choice wrong. For these questions, you're more just trying to eliminate choices rather than find the best one. Always keep that in mind. And once you find the wrong thing, you can just eliminate the choice and immediately move on. Homeowners are applying because they expect electricity rates to rise again soon. Okay, nope, it does not say anything in the passage about them rising again soon. It says they had fallen and nothing about them rising. Homeowners are applying largely because they think the tax credit program may be reduced or discontinued. Okay, nope. Again, does not say anything about being reduced or discontinued. That's completely unsupported. The surge in application shows that the tax credit has eliminated most of the financial risk. Okay, again, not at all, because it says here that they would have been cheaper if they just used the other stuff. And finally, many homeowners place significant value on environmental benefits when deciding when to install solar panels. That is supported because it talks here about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So D must be right. And that's literally it for how to solve these questions. I'm going to go over some more of them real quick just to show you guys, but all of them are going to follow this exact same process. Which choice best states the function of the underlined sentence in the passage as a whole? An op-ed begins with a personal note. The writer once opposed turning curb parking into bus lanes. She explains that she valued parking near small shops and feared longer trips. So the writer of this thing said that she once really wanted them to just keep the parking lots the way they were. Midway through, she represents data showing that bus lanes cut travel times for service workers and improve reliability during early and late shifts. So she's giving this data that supports the fact that buses actually do help people a lot. In the conclusion, she writes that lanes are a fairness update disguised as pain. So it's really fair to have these because it helps people like service workers and those who work in early and late shifts. The first section sets up the change in her view, and the body shows why it changed. So as for prediction, I think it has this underlined sentence just to show she originally felt one way and now she feels a different way. It undercuts her own conclusion. Okay, it doesn't really undercut it because it actually makes it feel stronger because it makes her show that she actually had a different idea, but she was just so changed by the evidence that she had to feel this way. It models an evidence-driven change in stance, moving from a familiar parking-friendly position to a new view justified by travel time data, so readers can see that the pivot results from evidence rather than loyalty to parking or shop access. That sounds really, really good, and that perfectly matches the prediction. Let me just check the other ones, but that's probably going to be right. It shifts the piece away from analysis and toward memoir, using commuting memories to replace quantitative claims with personal anecdotes. Okay, not really any personal stories that are talked about here, so I would say that can't be it. It establishes credibility through insider status. Okay, it doesn't talk anything about being an insider or anything. It's not like she's like an undercover agent or something. So B has got to be right. What if you see a command of evidence question like this one though? You approach these very similarly. First, read the question. Which choice best describes data from the table that supports Barrett and Rayfield's suggestion? So we're trying to support somebody's conclusion here. Now let's read the passage. The largest tyrannosaurids, the family of carnivorous dinosaurs that includes all this stuff, are thought to have had the strongest bites of any land animals in Earth's history. Determining the bite force of extinct animals can be difficult, however, and paleontologists Paul Barrett and Emily Rayfield have suggested that an estimated dinosaur bite force may be significantly influenced by the methodology used in generating that estimate. So these dinosaurs had really, really strong bites. But obviously we don't have any dinosaurs walking around anymore, so these people have to use very specific methods to determine how strong those bite forces actually were. And depending on their method, they may get different results. Next thing you want to do is still make a prediction. I know it's going to be hard to really make a good prediction for this, but it helps to consolidate your thoughts like it has for the other questions. So I would say we're looking for something for one of these choices that says that one of these people had really strong bite force and other people had really low bite force. And it just came down to what method they used as for which one they got. Then go to the choices. This may seem a little bit weird. You may expect me to say go to the graph or table or chart, but actually I found it's better to start with the choices and then only go to this when you need to use it to check one of your answers. The study by Mears used body mass scaling and produced the lowest estimated maximum bite force, while the study by Koss et al. Used muscular and skeletal modeling and produced the highest estimated maximum. Okay, that can work because that says that it has the lowest, created one thing, and the highest made another thing. So let me just check to make sure that is actually correct. So Mears used body mass scaling and had the lowest. Oh, okay, it was not the lowest. It was actually probably like one of the highest. Okay, so that's just not supported by the graph or table, so we can't go for that. But it would have been great if it was. In their study, Gignac and Erickson used tooth-bone interaction analysis to produce an estimated bite force with a minimum of 8,000 newtons and a maximum of 34,000. Okay, so that's not really that good because we need to be comparing something. We need to find something from a low one and also a high one. This just gives us only one to use, so that can't be right. It just doesn't answer the question well enough. C, the bite force estimates produced by Bates and Falkingham and by Koss et al. Were similar to each other, while the estimates produced by Mears and Gignac and Erickson each differed substantially from any other estimate. Okay, so yeah, let me see here. Bates and Falkingham and Koss et al. Okay, yeah, they're pretty similar to each other. The other ones were substantially different from any other estimate. Okay, yeah, those were substantially different. So C is probably going to be right. Let me just check D real quick. The estimated maximum bite force was produced by Koss et al. Exceed the estimated maximum produced by Bates and Falkingham, even though both groups use the same method. Okay, that would not support us because that would say that even if you use the same method, you might still get variation, which is not what we're trying to say. We're trying to say that the method matters a lot. So C must be right. Notice how I only looked at the graph or table or charts when I needed to check stuff. I didn't analyze all this information. In fact, if I did, this question would have taken so much more time because I would have had to look through all this different stuff. Yep, I also have a video on this as well. That is all of SAT reading. If this video actually helped you, leave a comment that says it does because my voice is absolutely cooked right now.
This that SAT, yeah, it's pretty mean.